Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to today's qualifying watch along for qualifying for the 2019 German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, where after practice 3 and really practice so far this weekend, we could possibly have a grid for tomorrow's race that isn't the one we thought it would be, because Ferrari, I'm not going to spoil it right now, but Ferrari do look very, very strong ahead of qualifying. Will they maintain it? Who knows, but I think we are in for a close fight for pole position for sure between Hamilton, Bottas. I think Charles Leclerc will be in there because Charles Leclerc has been very good this weekend. So yeah, definitely you will want to tune in to qualifying and this qualifying watch along today. And hopefully you guys, no matter where you're on the world, hopefully you're having a very good day on this, what is for me, early Saturday afternoon. And hopefully you will enjoy qualifying today. And also we could see some rain at some point today. So yeah, qualifying today is definitely going to be exciting. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But before we get into previewing the teams as we normally do ahead of qualifying, let's first get into the results of practice 3, which took place about 2 hours ago, ended about an hour ago. Let's now get into those results. And it was Charles Leclerc P1 like he was in practice 2 yesterday. Max Verstappen was P2, Vettel was P3, then Bottas was in P4, Magnussen P5, Lewis Hamilton P6, Carlos Sainz P7, Pierre Gasly in P8, and then P9 and P10 Raikkonen and Grosjean. And then outside the top 10, Sergio Perez, Nico Hülkenberg, Alexander Albon, Lando Norris, Antonio Giovinazzi, Lance Stroll, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Ricciardo, Robert Kubica and George Russell. So those are the results for practice 3. And I think these results do set us up for, even if it's dry, a very good qualifying session here at Hockenheim today. But now, let's get into previewing the teams and how I think they'll do based off of practice so far at Hockenheim. So, let's first go to the Silver Arrows. Mercedes, who this weekend have not looked that good. Now, either they're sandbagging massively or their new big update simply hasn't worked. I think they are sandbagging quite a lot. I think they can go quite a bit faster than how they have, so far this weekend. So definitely expect Mercedes, even if they're not in pole position, to be a lot closer to pole position or P1 rather than they were in practice 3. They're not going to be, half a second off the pace. I just don't see that. Again, if they don't get pole, it will be very, very close. Say a tenth, maybe 0.2 of a second at most. So I still think they are going to be very, very strong. I think Lewis Hamilton, once he gets his laps in, and same with Valtteri Bottas, wants to get some clean runs in, I think they can be very, very quick. And I absolutely still think that they are the favourites for pole. Yes, Ferrari have topped every session so far, but how many times have Ferrari topped a practice session, especially right before qualifying, and not delivered? So I think Mercedes are still the favourites. I would not really bet against them. Because also, if this new update really has worked and, is really good for them, then they are probably also sandbagging because they don't want to show how great that update is until they have to, for example, in qualifying or the Grand Prix. So I think they are sandbagging, definitely a bit compared to Ferrari, but even if they get pole position today, Mercedes, I don't think it will be dominant. I don't think it'll be, half a second or something like that. I think it'll be probably a tenth or two at most if Mercedes get the pole position. Next up is Ferrari. Now, Ferrari, as I've just said a moment ago, have topped every session so far this weekend. Practice 1, practice 2, and practice 3. Now, you would think, because of that Ferrari should dominate qualifying today, but that's, I'm afraid, not how it works if you are a Ferrari fan, because we have seen so many times with Ferrari, even if they haven't been that great in practice, but do have, say, quite a bit of promise going into the qualifying session that they tend to not deliver on that. It's quite rare Ferrari end up delivering on the promise they do have going into a qualifying session. So I'm not going to get too, say, overhyped about Ferrari today. I don't think Ferrari are in a position after practice so far, knowing that, Mercedes are most likely sandbagging. I don't think Ferrari are in a position where they can think, of getting an easy front row like they did in Bahrain or something. So I think Ferrari today, just go out there, go for it, and get the pole position if you can. But if I was Ferrari, I would go into this session not expecting to get pole, because how many times have we seen Mercedes, come back in the qualifying session when it matters after practice 3 and get pole and even the front row? So hopefully Ferrari, can get pole position, because it would make the rest of the weekend very, very exciting and definitely would make for a great race. But it's Ferrari. They'll find a way to mess it up, and they always do. Next up, Red Bull. Red Bull in practice 3 looked pretty good. They were only, a tenth of a second off Charles Leclerc. And if you look at their pace so far this weekend, especially in practice 2, they're not that far off Red Bull. I think in practice 2 yesterday, for example, they were a bit, they had a bit of a weird session because there's, a couple issues, Gasly crashed and stuff like that. But I think, once everything goes to plan and they can, put in the laps when they're supposed to, I think Red Bull do have a good car this weekend. But I don't think they have a good enough car for pole position. If it does rain, though, I think Max Verstappen will most likely be, at the very least, in the top 3, maybe on the front row. But I think, even in the dry, I don't think Red Bull are that far off Mercedes and Ferrari. I think Max Verstappen is probably going to end up being 4 to 5 tenths of a second off pole position in Q3, which is not that bad. It's not that bad because, Red Bull are expected to be at best that far off in qualifying because, of course, the Honda power unit doesn't have, quite the power in qualifying to compete with the Ferrari power unit and the Mercedes power unit. And, there are areas of this circuit where power is very important. So if, Red Bull can line up, say, I don't know, P5, P6 with both drivers and be about half a second off, I don't think they'll be that concerned. I think they'll actually be, in terms of the pace of the car, quite happy if they are at most a half a second off pace. Pierre Gasly in practice 3, by the way, was down in P8 behind 2 midfield runners. Now, he did have not a big crash in practice 2 yesterday. It wasn't a massive crash, but it actually caused Red Bull to put in a new chassis, I believe, for him. So things are not looking that great for Gasly so far this weekend. He can't really, argue against the way his weekend has gone so far, Pierre, because he, caused that issue to happen going into the wall. But I'm hoping Pierre does not, settle back into how he was in France and Austria. I'm hoping he keeps up a Silverstone level of performance, because if he does, then I think, Red Bull tomorrow are looking good for the Grand Prix. But if Gasly ends up behind a couple midfield runners, then Silverstone was just a fluke. So let's see what Gasly can do today. Hopefully he can do well. But before, guys, we go on to the midfield runners, let me know in the live chat right now, who do you think out of the top 3 is going to get, well, not going to get pole position, we'll get onto that later on, but who do you think is looking good for pole position out of the top 3? For Mercedes, do you think they are still the favourites and are sandbagging? For Ferrari, do you think they can get pole? Do you really think they can? In the dry, of course. And for Red Bull, what do you think they can do in the dry or the wet? I will say with Mercedes, I think if it rains, I think Mercedes will absolutely finish ahead of Ferrari. And yeah, Ferrari, if it does rain, I don't see how they'll get pole position, because their car aerodynamically isn't good enough to handle the wet weather compared to the Mercedes or the Red Bull car. So yeah, I think Ferrari are praying that it stays dry, and that's not a guarantee, of course. So, yeah, let me know in the live chat what you think, and I'll read out your comments in just a moment. But I just want to say, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for consistent watch-alongs this weekend. Of course, today, but also tomorrow for the race watch-along. Tomorrow's race watch-along is the only place you can watch a watch-along on this website for the 2019 German Grand Prix, and this is the channel to be at for that. So don't forget to subscribe, bottom right of the screen, or just go to my homepage, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. And also, don't forget to smash the like button for more content like this. But before I come to you guys, I'm going to have a quick drink, and then we'll get to you guys in the live chat for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get to that midfield pack. Right, so let's see what you guys have to say. And by the way, great to see 130 of you already here in the stream. But yeah, let me just see what you guys have to say. Let me just take a look. Good to see Nib there. By the way, Nib, of course, Niblo, who's always on the podcast, he will be on the race watch along tomorrow for, of course, the race for the 2019 German Grand Prix. So yeah, just to let you guys know that. And he's saying that Renault are awful this weekend. Well, yeah, I'll get into that in a moment. And well, it's quite clear that they are. David Kim Baza, Mercedes look like they're really struggling unless it rains. I don't think they're struggling as much as people think. I really don't think they are. I think there's a lot more to come from that car in qualifying, because as we've seen in 2019, they tend to really conserve their fuel, their engine modes, their tires. They really tend to conserve that a lot until they have to absolutely go for it in qualifying or at times in a Grand Prix. They tend to conserve quite a lot because, of course, they don't want to have any reliability issues or anything like that that ruins the weekend. Addiction says Leclerc will fight Verstappen for pole, hopefully, but I don't think that's quite likely. Sebastian says, I think Ferrari are favourites, but I think Hamilton will be on the front row. The possibility of rain is only 30% now. Well, yeah, as I was watching the Sky F1 coverage a minute ago, there are some darker clouds around, but it, for the moment, looks like it's going to be dry. But I'm not sure it will stay dry. I mean, who knows? In last year's race, we didn't think the rain shower that came that really affected the entire 2018 season, you'd have to say. We didn't think that would occur. So who knows? Germany, if you look at the history of German Grand Prix or races in Germany in Formula 1, it tends to happen a lot where we'll get a rain shower that is quite unexpected, either because of the amount of rain we have or just, the rain shower coming in general. So don't be surprised if we get a rain shower. It can definitely happen. Absolutely, it could definitely happen. Right, let's look for some more comments. Hello to JB. Let me look at some other comments. Super Vlogger Michael says Leclerc will get his third pole and first win this weekend. I think it's way too early to say that. We need to see what the pace is in qualifying so far. Francisco, do you think Hamilton will finally out-qualify his teammate at Hockenheim? I will get onto that later on when we get to the predictions, but it's looking good for him to out-qualify his teammate. But as we've seen with Valtteri Bottas, when it comes to qualifying, most of the time, he is really good. So don't count out Valtteri Bottas for qualifying today, because you never know. He could end up on pole position. He is very good at this circuit. Last year, Valtteri, I thought, was very good. And in 2014, for Williams, he was very, very good. So yeah, definitely look out for Valtteri. And what else have we got? Kurt Borman says, hi Chazza, hello to you Kurt. He says, hope you're good mate. Yep, hope you're good as well mate. And he says, or asks rather, why do Mercedes always sandbag, yet Ferrari and Red Bull don't sandbag as much? I think because if Mercedes showed their true pace in practice, then their rivals would be able to have more time to work on stuff to improve their pace compared to them. What you want to do in an ideal world is show your real pace when it matters, so your rivals have no time to, put on a different setup or go for something different with their car to, to improve their pace. That's why they do it. Because if they came out, in practice 1 and were, 1.5 seconds clear and running at qualifying pace, then that would give Ferrari and Red Bull 2.5 hours of more practice to try and close that gap and figure out why they are so far off. In qualifying, of course, once qualifying gets underway and you come out the pit lane, Parc Ferme comes into effect. So the teams can't touch the cars and put on a new setup or new parts onto the car because of Parc Ferme. So that's why they do it, because they don't want to give their rivals time to close the gap during the weekend. And it's a smart thing to do, and it is really the thing to do if you know you have the best car. It's a very smart idea, but it's not exactly an uncommon idea. Right, let's find a couple more comments here. Super Vlogger Michael, if it rains, Merc 1-2. If it's dry, Ferrari 1-2. I don't think it is as simple as that. I really don't think it is. I'll be honest, even if Ferrari do have a quick car today, I don't think they'll be locking out the front row. I don't see it. I think if Ferrari get pole, it'll be, Ferrari pole and then another car next to them, like a Mercedes or something. I don't see a Ferrari 1-2 today, come rain or shine. I just don't see it. Max will be in the mix for sure, definitely. John Huebner says Mercedes doesn't show their true pace to make it look interesting. Come qualifying in the race, they are good enough to turn the car up and down enough to win. I think maybe that does play an effect, but I think mostly what I said earlier is probably the main reason. But I think that's definitely a factor and a slight reason also for why they do it for sure. Because, if they're going to get TV viewers and get eyes on the Mercedes team being as great as they are, they need to, make it look competitive so that people, watch the session thinking, maybe we're going to have a battle for pole between two different teams. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a factor, but not as big as the one I talked about earlier, but it's definitely a factor. You cannot doubt that whatsoever. And let me find one more comment, and it is from Mr. Random Guy, who asks me in the comments and says, how much will track limits affect qualifying? Very good you bring this up. I was going to bring this up at some point, but thankfully you brought it up now. After practice 2 on Friday, the FIA race director, Michael Massey, has provided a clarification of track limits for certain corners, and has also clarified that if you go too far over the white lines or go over the white lines period at these exits of corners, then your lap time will be deleted. So if any driver goes over the white lines at the exit of turn 1 and the exit of the final corner, then their time will be deleted. And I think that's a great thing, because that is called applying the rules. That is the rules. If you go over the white lines of the circuit deliberately because you know it'll be faster, your lap time should be deleted. No matter what. No excuses, nothing. Your lap time should be deleted. So it's great to see the rules being applied in the correct way this time compared to, other races this season. But it definitely will play an effect for sure, because certain drivers would have, come into this session imagining themselves, absolutely throwing it into turn one and putting all four wheels off the circuit and also doing the same at the final corner. Now they've got to slightly adjust their line into those corners and on the exit of those corners. I think the drivers will be fine because, they're so good. They can still go very quickly and keep it within the track. So I think they'll be fine, but it definitely will slightly affect their, say, game plan for their own driving going into the session. But now let's get into the midfield. First off, Renault, and as Nib was saying in the chat a moment ago, Renault have been poor this weekend. They just don't have a good car this weekend. The best they look like they can get is a P10 or a P11 at the absolute best. But even that looks, so far this weekend, not that likely because Haas, in terms of qualifying pace, so far this weekend looked pretty good. Alpha with Kimi Raikkonen looked pretty good. McLaren, with one of their cars, looked pretty good. So Renault are not in a great position this weekend. I mean, in practice 3, they were P12 and P18, I believe, which is terrible for Renault. Absolutely terrible. And they cannot afford to be in that position in qualifying because they've got to start catching McLaren because they haven't actually outscored McLaren in a Grand Prix since Canada. So they've got to start outscoring them because if they don't, then McLaren are going to, even though McLaren don't have an amazingly quick, car this weekend, they're going to pull away. So Renault have got to, at least one car solidly in that top 10. They cannot afford both cars to be knocked out in Q2 or, a car to get knocked out in Q1. They just cannot afford for that to happen because they've got to start catching McLaren now because McLaren have outscored them in so many races since Baku, really. I think Baku, if you look at since Baku, the only race Renault have outscored McLaren is Canada. That's how much better McLaren have been compared to Renault. So it's time for this team to knuckle down and show some proper performance. Next up, McLaren, and as I said a moment ago, McLaren haven't actually been that great this weekend. I think the highest McLaren driver this weekend is most likely going to be Carlos Sainz because Lando Norris, really for the entire weekend, so far has not been that good. He was, I think, down in P15 or P16 in practice. Was it practice 2? Yeah, it was practice 2. So yeah, Lando not looking that good. Carlos Sainz, though, has been pretty good this weekend, even though the McLaren car at times has not been, say, as good as it has been at other points of 2019. If McLaren are going to get a car in the top 10, it's going to be Carlos Sainz. I think Lando Norris, based on the weekend so far, is most likely going to be knocked out in, say, I don't know, P13, P14, maybe P12. He just hasn't looked that good this weekend. Carlos Sainz, I think Carlos will get in the top 10. I'm not sure he'll be at the front of the midfield pack. I think he'll probably be in the top, say, 8, maybe at worst, say in P9. But yeah, I think McLaren, compared to their main rivals at the moment, Renault, at least from that point of view, McLaren are looking good because they are definitely quicker than Renault this weekend. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. The McLaren does look better. The Renault this weekend, and I was commenting on about this in practice 2 when I was looking at Renault's laps on board. The Renault is so bad at the front end, it just won't go into the corner compared to, say, even the McLaren. So definitely McLaren are faster than Renault, and as long as they finish ahead of them, I think they will be happy with that. Next up is Alfa Romeo. With Kimi Raikkonen, Alfa look good, but their car, if you look at the laps, if you actually go on board with them, the Alfa car doesn't look that great this weekend. At the back end, the car looks nice and settled, but at the front end, it does have, no surprise, because of the front wing design they do have, it has quite a bit of understeer. So the Alpha car not looking that good in terms of grip, but Kimi Raikkonen, despite that, is still driving very well and getting the best out of the Alfa Romeo car. Good for him. And I think Kimi Raikkonen is probably going to finish in the top 10 in qualifying today, because he has consistently been up there in the top 10. And also, even though he hasn't had the best of luck around Hockenheim in terms of reliability and stuff like that, if you look at, again, Kimi Raikkonen's history around Hockenheim, in terms of pace, he's always been good here. He's always been a good driver at this circuit. So I think Kimi definitely will be in the top 10. I don't know where, but I think he will be in that top 10 for sure. For Giovinazzi, surprisingly, Antonio hasn't really done anything good this weekend. He hasn't looked anywhere near his teammate Kimi Raikkonen. I think the best he could do is probably a P14, something like that. But yeah, Antonio not looking that good at all. Next up, Haas. Now, Haas, they're so confusing this weekend, I have to be honest, because, so, you know, in practice 2, Romain Grosjean, the man you see on your screen, he ran, or is running this weekend, the old spec of car from, I believe, the Australian Grand Prix, but Kevin Magnussen is running the current Haas car. Now, yesterday, Romain Grosjean was over a second faster than Magnussen with a much older car, which is unbelievable. But then, after some changes that have been made overnight to K-Mag's car, now Magnussen is looking very quick. So it's really hard to say, you know, what Haas are going to do this weekend and what they're going to do in qualifying today, because their car at the moment is just so weird. It is working in such a weird way. I think they are probably going to get a car in the top 10. I think Haas, based on this weekend so far, Haas are probably the most likely team to get both cars into the top 10 out of the midfield. As we know, on race day, they will fall back. But I think, you know, if they can get both cars into the top 10, even though they are going to drop back in the race, as we know, at least that would be a sign that Haas are starting to make progress in terms of the car. Because in the last couple races, I know in Austria they were pretty good in qualifying, but if you look at really since the Canadian Grand Prix, Haas haven't been good really in qualifying as well. So if they were to, you know, improve their qualifying performance compared to races like, you know, Silverstone, France, Canada, then I think that'd be a positive step forward, even if in tomorrow's Grand Prix they fall back and finish, you know, P15 and P16. So Haas, hopefully they get both cars in the top 10. And I think, yeah, they are probably the most likely team to do so. Next up is Toro Rosso, whose car this weekend for some reason just looks terrible. I don't know what they've been playing at this weekend, but they just haven't had a good car. I thought Toro Rosso would not be great or anything, but say be around P12, P11, but they're not really in that fight, it seems. And it's a bit of a shame, because in Silverstone, Toro Rosso were great. They were one of the better midfield teams, but this weekend, it looks as though they have the worst car in the midfield this weekend, and that is a shame, because, again, I thought they would be very good. And I actually thought Toro Rosso would be better at a track like Hockenheim than they would be at Silverstone. So I cannot explain why Toro Rosso have just been so poor this weekend, but there you go. Hopefully they can get a better grip position than they're expecting coming into the session after what has been a not so good practice. But yeah, I think Toro Rosso, I think the best they can do is say, I don't know, get one car into Q2 and then the other car's probably going to get knocked out in qualifying 1. And the last midfield team is Racing Point. Racing Point have been quite good this weekend. Yesterday in practice, they were in the top 10 with one of their cars. I think Lance Stroll was in the top 10 yesterday and was looking very good in the Racing Point car. Now, can they continue that? I don't think they can. I don't think they can because I think there were mitigating factors for why they're in the top 10 yesterday. Perez in practice 3 was in P11. Stroll was down in P16 for some reason. But I think Racing Point, you cannot doubt it whatsoever. Racing Point have made a step forward. They look about, to me, around this circuit, they look about 3 or 4 tenths of a second, probably half a second quicker than they were with their, old car at Silverstone. And the great thing for Racing Point is that they've got another load of upgrades that are coming to the race in Hungary next weekend. So great news for Racing Point. They really are stepping up their game. They're improving with the new update, the new B car really they do have. Great news for them. And I think they are definitely, if you're going to watch out for a team in qualifying, look out for Racing Point. Because they will be higher in qualifying today than they normally are. So definitely look out for them. And also, please, Lance Stroll, get out of Q1. If you don't get out of Q1 and your teammate ends up in the top 10 today, then I think that is absolute 1,000,000% confirmation that Lance Stroll is terrible at qualifying. So hopefully Stroll gets out of Q1 for the first time in 2019. First time in 2019 if he does get out of Q1. That would be incredible. And the last team, of course, is the toothpaste team, Williams. They've brought a bit of updates for this Grand Prix. And I think they have probably closed the gap to the midfield. But they're not competitive still with the midfield because the other midfield teams are just developing at a better and faster rate. So Williams, even though they are probably slightly closer, they're still nowhere near close enough to compete this weekend. But if it does rain, look out for George Russell, because you never know, he could produce an amazing performance. But guys, with 27.5 minutes to go until qualifying gets underway at Hockenheim, let me know right now in the live chat, for the midfield teams, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Renault can improve on what has been a meh weekend so far? Do you think McLaren are going to be good? Do you think Kimi Räikkönen can be in the top 10? Do you think Haas can get both cars in the top 10? Do you think Toro Rosso will continue their poor form this weekend? And for Racing Point, with their new updates, where do you think Racing Point are going to be? Let me know in the live chat. And I'll make sure to read out your comments in just a moment. And I'll come to them right now. Right, let's see what you guys have to say. Let me just quickly check if I've got any super chats. Nope, not at the moment. Right, let's take a look. Stuart Hunt says Lance Stroll is terrible, full stop. On race day, I don't agree. But when it comes to qualifying, yeah, for sure. Geordie says, I think Mercedes is really hiding their pace for this Grand Prix. Yeah, I think they are. Let me find some others. E7 Suspect says Gasly might slip behind the 2 McLarens, I think he was saying. If he continues his bad weekend so far, it has been a bad weekend, you have to say, because, yeah, practice 1? He ended up in the top 6. That was all right. Practice 2 wasn't good because he was down in P14 or P15. I know he didn't do a soft tyre run, but still. And he crashed and had to have his chassis replaced. And then in practice 3, he was behind Magnussen and Carlos Sainz. So this weekend has not been a good weekend for Pierre Gasly. And yeah, if he ends up behind the 2 McLarens, if he ends up behind a midfield runner, on pure pace, and ends up miles behind Max Verstappen, then you can only call Silverstone a fluke, I'm afraid. Right. Crystal Racing says Lance Stroll is the F1 version of Marco Andretti. I would say he's the F1 version of Michael Andretti. And also Pierre Gasly reminds me a lot of Michael Andretti as well. Stuart Hunt says, really hope Williams can get at least a point this season. Well, If they get a point this season, I think that'd be the biggest miracle that they've ever, or the biggest hurdle that they've ever, overcome, because I don't see how they can get a point. I just don't see it. Even in a wet race, I don't think their drivers are that good to get that much out of the car. So, yeah, most likely Williams are going to end up without a point. It's going to take a Spa 1998 type of race for Williams to finish in the points. It really, really is. Williams for a point at Monza? No, no chance. Let me look for some more comments or questions here from you guys. JB, I don't understand why Stroll is so bad in quali this season. In the worst car last year, he got out of Q1 about 3 times last year. Well, last year as well, he got into Q3 at Monza in the Italian Grand Prix. He got into Q3. So, I don't know what it is. I know, of course, he hasn't been to that track yet this season, but there's been tracks this season where, he does have a decent record, like Canada. He didn't get out of Q1 there. He did have a great race, but, qualifying could have been a bit better, for sure. Baku, he was awful in qualifying in Baku. He was good in the race, but in qualifying, he was very bad. So, I don't get it. I don't get how he can be this bad. And I think you have to say that if this is the best Lance Stroll is ever going to get to in terms of his own talent, then I don't think Stroll is ever going to make for, a great driver, a good driver, a top driver, because Sergio Perez this season has comfortably been better. You cannot doubt that whatsoever. The only races this season where I'd say that Stroll was better than Perez is, I think Australia, you can say that, because Stroll did very well in the race to capitalise on Perez and, other people being held up behind Antonio Giovinazzi to get into the points. But in qualifying, Perez was P10, I think. So, kind of 50-50 really that weekend. Canada, I think Stroll was definitely the better driver that weekend, but every other weekend, Perez has comfortably been better. He absolutely has. You cannot doubt that whatsoever. Right, let's look at some other comments here. I wouldn't be surprised if Stroll got out Q1 today, also from JB. Crystal Racing says Lance Stroll's strengths revolve around cold tyres and circuits of long straights and few corners. Maybe that shows you that he doesn't have that much talent. Possibly. Because you cannot doubt the more, corners you have on a racetrack, the harder it is going to be for a racing driver. And I think, by the way, that's partly why Pierre Gasly was so good at Silverstone. Is because at Silverstone, there's only 5 corners that you really have to properly brake and turn for. All the other corners at Silverstone, you just, slightly turn the wheel to the right or left and keep your foot down, or, just slightly lift off the throttle. It's not the hardest racetrack in the world, Silverstone. It's a great racetrack, but you know what I mean? Silverstone, it's not exactly a track that you're constantly having to brake and turn and throw the car about through slow corners or whatever, or medium speed corners. Most of it is just keep your foot down, which is not, for a Formula 1 driver, that hard to do. So I think that's probably why Gasly was so good at Silverstone. And let me look for one final comment, and then, guys, we will get on to my qualifying predictions for qualifying today. Yeah, that's coming in a moment. Mr. Random Guy saying you do need to be committed at Silverstone. Absolutely, but again, it's mostly Silverstone flat out. So, and for a Formula 1 driver, considering how skilled they are, keeping your foot down is not as hard as, constantly having to brake and turn and in certain corners. That's why Monaco is such a hard circuit, because you're constantly having to, brake, accelerate at multiple times during the lap. Right, let me find one final comment here. And it's from Dominic Pantello, who says, I'm looking forward to Max and Charles going at it again this weekend. Well, hopefully they do, because it would be great to see that for the third time in a row. But now, guys, let's now get into my predictions for qualifying today at Hockenheim. Make sure, guys, to put yours in whilst I'm doing mine, and then for the last 15 minutes before qualifying gets underway, I will make sure to read yours out, every single one of yours, before qualifying gets underway. So make sure to do that, and yet I will read it out. Now, I will say I am making these predictions. When I made them last night when I didn't know what the weather would be for qualifying today, because of course, it looked as though it could be raining, but now it looks as though it's going to be dry. So this is what I went for. So I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton on pole position, because again, Mercedes are sandbagging. They are absolutely holding back, and I think they're holding back enough pace for them to be on pole position. So I think Lewis Hamilton will take pole today, and I think he will definitely in Q3 be just too good for the other drivers. Hockenheim is not always his best circuit, but I think Lewis will be very good today. And yeah, he's going for today at Hockenheim is Lewis Hamilton, his second pole position. His last pole position at Hockenheim was 2008, 11 years ago. So in terms of pole position, him getting pole at Hockenheim is not that, that great of a thing for him, but I think he will do it today. And also Mercedes are going for their third pole at Hockenheim, and going for their first pole position at Hockenheim since 2016, because of course last year Ferrari took pole position. In second, I'm going to go Valtteri Bottas. Again, the reason I'm going for the Mercedes 1-2 is because I thought today it would probably be raining, so that's why I've gone for this. I'm most likely going to be wrong, but who cares? Yeah, Valtteri is very good at this track. You cannot doubt that. If you look at his history around Hockenheim, Valtteri is a very, very good driver, especially in qualifying, and I think he will be very strong today. I think he'll be very close to his teammate, Lewis Hamilton. No doubt about that whatsoever. But if he does get pole, it'll be his first ever at Hockenheim, and Mercedes are looking to get their second 1-2 in qualifying in Germany. They've only had one 1-2 finish in qualifying at Hockenheim, and that was 2016 with Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. Now, again, because I thought it would be raining, I went for Max Verstappen in third, because again, I thought today it would be raining, so this is why I went for this top three. And yeah, I think Max, even if it's in the dry, I think Max is going to be very competitive and will probably be, given how great he's been in qualifying as of late, I wouldn't be surprised if he got into the top four. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because again, Max Verstappen has been so good at, getting the most out of his car when it comes to qualifying. But again, I predicted this thinking it'd be raining. But if Max does get pole somehow, by some miracle, it'll be his first ever at Hockenheim. And Red Bull looking for their first pole at Hockenheim since 2010, where Sebastian Vettel got pole by, I think, 0.002 of a second. So, yeah, that's what I've gone for. Again, I went for it thinking it'd be raining. It's most likely going to be dry, so Ferrari are going to be probably very competitive. But who knows? Maybe I'll be right, even in the dry. We'll have to see. But guys, let me know right now in the live chat, with the last 15 minutes to go until qualifying, Who is, for you, in your opinion, going to take pole position? Who will finish in P2, P3, P4, P5? And if you want to do the rest, you can. But yeah, let me know in the live chat for the next 15 minutes, and I'll make sure to read out every single one of your predictions going into qualifying in 14.5 minutes time. But before I do, again, quick reminder that tomorrow I will be live for the race watch along at 1 PM UK time, and that is the only place on this website you can see a watch along for the 2019 German Grand Prix. So make sure to subscribe to the channel for that. You can do it on the bottom right of the screen, or you can go to my homepage, subscribe, and also, very importantly, hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when I upload, and also smash the like button for more content like this. But again, I'll quickly have a drink and come to you guys in the chat. Right, so and we'll quickly move on to this picture of Lewis Hamilton. Let's see what you guys have to say then. Let me go to the start of these predictions and see what you guys are saying. Right, let's find the first one and then we'll read them all out. Rakudzo says Ferrari 1-2. Right, where's the others? Dennis O'Boyle says Lewis Hamilton to get pole, Charles Leclerc to get second, Sebastian Vettel third, Max Verstappen fourth, Valtteri Bottas fifth, and Kevin Magnussen in P6. Astro Stevo says Hamilton to get pole from Valtteri Bottas in second, Charles Leclerc third, Max Verstappen fourth, Lando Norris fifth, Carlos Sainz sixth, and then Ricardo, Hülkenberg, Kimi, and Kvyat in P10. That's a bit surprised given that the weekend we've had so far. JB says Leclerc to get pole from Vettel second, Hamilton third, Verstappen fourth, Bottas fifth, and Kevin Magnussen in P6. What else have we got here for predictions? JB, if it's dry, what are your predictions, Chaz? In the dry, I'd go for the same first and second, but then third place probably, given the weekend so far, Charles Leclerc. I still think Ferrari are not going to get pole. I think Mercedes are sandbagging a lot for sure. Hopefully, though, Ferrari prove me wrong. I really hope they do prove me wrong, because I want to see more than one team fight for the victory. Because if you look at 2019, when we've had more than one team going for victory, we have had a great race basically every time. So if we get that in qualifying today, then that just sets us up for a guaranteed great race. Right, let me find some others. Anne says Max on pole from Vettel and Bottas. Prussia says Hamilton on pole. Another Anne says Vettel P1. Matt Hoover says Bottas on pole from Hamilton second, Leclerc third, and Max Verstappen in P4. Gina says Hamilton on pole from Bottas second, Leclerc third, Max fourth, Vettel fifth, and Raikkonen in sixth. Right, let's find some others here. Again, keep making sure to put yours in the chat, and I'll make sure to read them all out before the start of qualifying. Right, hold on, let me just as well move on to different picture. There's a Ferrari, of course, of Charles Leclerc. Michael Arvin says Hamilton on pole, Max in second, Leclerc third, Bottas fourth, Vettel fifth, then Gasly, Kimi, and Ricardo. Steez and Spets, I think it is, says Vettel on pole, Leclerc second, Hamilton third, Max in fourth, and Bottas fifth. Savage Savs says Leclerc to get pole from Vettel second, Hamilton third, Verstappen 4th, Bottas 5th, and Lando Norris in P6. Asim says Vettel for pole position. Harith Zach says Leclerc for pole, Hamilton 2nd, Bottas 3rd, Vettel 4th, and Max Verstappen in P5. I'm not even going to try and read that name. His second name is Hazim, who says Leclerc pole. Rise says Vettel on pole, Hamilton 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Bottas 4th, then Verstappen, Gasly, Magnussen, Sainz, Grosjean, and Norris. Videos by C says Max on pole, Hamilton 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Bottas 4th, and Vettel 5th. Let me see if I can find any more. Crystal Racing, Gasly on pole. Allwin Abraham says Leclerc on pole from Seb in 2nd, Hamilton 3rd. Peter King says Lewis on pole from Bottas 2nd, Vettel 3rd, Verstappen 4th, Leclerc 5th, and Gasly in P6. Who else have we got? Louis Trishard, great to see you, mate. Says Bottas on pole from Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, and Verstappen. Let's see if there's any more. Right, hold on. Let me just see if I can find any more here. Kerrang says Bottas, Hamilton, Leclerc. By the way, good morning to Tonka, who of course is from the States. He's one of our moderators. Great to see you here as well, mate. Hazim says Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas. Matt Lumsden says Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton. Hashiman says for F1.5, Norris, Gasly, Grosjean. So I'm guessing Norris in P6 and then Gasly P7 and Grosjean P8. Crystal Racing says Bottas on pole from Hamilton in 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Verstappen 4th, and Vettel 5th. By the way, I just want to say, I just was watching Sky F1 then whilst I was reading that out. There are so many Max Verstappen fans. There's more Max Verstappen fans than there is Sebastian Vettel fans, it looks like. It's not really a German Grand Prix, is it? And, you know, it's incredible, the support Max Verstappen gets, and it just shows you that once we get to Zandvoort in 2020, everyone is going to be wearing an orange t-shirt, no doubt about it, and it's going to be great. But yeah, lots of Max Verstappen fans at Hockenheim today. Right, let's read out some more. Gurang says Leclerc to get pole from Vettel 2nd, Hamilton 3rd, then Verstappen and Bottas. Gemma Knowles says Vettel on pole, Verstappen 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Bottas 5th, Gasly 6th, and Raikkonen P7. Smokey H says Vettel for pole, Leclerc 2nd, Verstappen 3rd. Seems as though a lot of you guys are going for Ferrari pole. I understand why, but still I think Ferrari are going to be disappointed in the end, but hopefully they're not. Let's hope we can get a two-team battle. Right, let's find some others. No problem, Anne, for that. He says, thank you, Chazza, and no problem to Tonka. He says, thanks, Chazza. Let me try and find some other predictions here that I've not read out yet and move on to a different picture. There you go, that's Max Verstappen, of course. Right, let's find... Joanne Terry says Ferrari will have 1st and 2nd today. Jacob Wober, who I think is in our Discord, if it is you, hello to you, says Leclerc 2nd. Leclerc to get pole from Lewis 2nd, Seb 3rd, then Max, Valtteri, Kimi, and Gasly. By the way, talking of Discord, if you haven't joined our Discord server and you're new, make sure to do so, because that is the best place for notifications of my videos and streams, and is the hardcore Chazza HD1 community, and on a race weekend, it is pretty active. So yeah, make sure to join that if you want to join this growing community. Right. Let me find some others here. Ronald Castile, I think it is, says Max to get pole from Vettel 2nd, Hamilton 3rd. JB Hamburger for the top 3. Tonka says Bottas, Lewis, Leclerc for the top 3 in qualifying. Who else have we got here? Making predictions. Let me just see if I can find any. Sebastian. Leclerc to get pole. Hamilton second. Vettel third. And who else have we got? Trying to see. Let me just try and see if I can find any more here. Stelios says Hamilton to get pole from Leclerc, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Gasly. And who else have we got? Right, I think that's it. I think that's... Oh no, we've got one more person, haven't we? Or am I reading that wrong? Yeah, I'm reading that wrong. So, those are all of the predictions from you guys so far. But, you know, keep them coming because I will make sure to read them out, you know, before, say, Q3 in terms of predictions for pole position and stuff like that. But, of course, we have now 4 minutes to go until qualifying at Hockenheim. Now, for anyone new watching, I just need to let you guys know how we do watch-alongs, you know, on this channel. So, of course, we cannot show live TV coverage of the session because that would be obvious copyright infringement and I would have my channel took down in record time. So, what I do is, as I do now, I show pictures live from the track with a running order running along the bottom of the screen that I'll update as much as I can during the session. I don't promise ever that it will be absolutely live to the second, but whenever I get enough time to update it, then I do so. So that's how it works. And also, what I do is provide basically a live radio commentary of what is going on at the track. So don't worry if you can't watch this video, but you're listening because you're out and about or doing something. Don't worry, I'll keep you absolutely up to date with what is going on. But I will say, because of the device I watch my F1 on, it is a bit behind your guys' feed by about a minute. So when qualifying gets underway, if you do want to sync up with me for qualifying, then just simply pause your live coverage of the session if you're watching it for about a minute and then press play again, and then you should be just about, or, you know, around about, you know, where I am in terms of, you know, syncing up our coverage together. But if you don't want to do that, no problem. But I'm just, you know, letting you guys know that, you know, my feed is delayed by about a minute. Nothing I can do about it. This is the only way I can watch Formula One. This is the only way I can bring a watch along to you. So yeah, this is the only way I can do this. But we now have 2 minutes to go until qualifying gets underway. Let me just mute my mic so I can clear my throat a bit. But yeah, about a minute and a half to go until qualifying. And yeah, the pictures, by the way, I bring up are always from Twitter. And I'll try to bring up as many as I can during the course of the session. So yeah, that is what we do around here. But yeah, qualifying getting underway soon, and by the looks of it, it's going to be dry because it looks to be pretty dry to me. So yeah, I think we are in for a dry session today. And yeah, looking at the overhead, it looks mostly, well, it's mostly sunny by the looks of the overhead. Live on my TV, at least from Hockenheim, it's 28 degrees Celsius at Hockenheim, about 45 degrees Celsius for the track temperature. So still very, very warm, and that will affect things. So yeah. But let me quickly get rid of the timer and get things ready for you guys. With qualifying, you know, so close now. Of course, if you don't know, Q1 is 18 minutes long to decide who the 5 slowest cars are and whether or who, you know, gets knocked out in Q1. So let me just get this text ready for you guys. Remaining in Q1. There you go. Hold on. Remaining in Q1. I'll get the timer up in a moment once the session actually gets underway, and I'll get the running order up in just a moment. And yeah, as I was saying, plenty of Max Verstappen fans at Hockenheim. Great to see that. And a great crowd for qualifying today at Hockenheim. Absolutely fantastic to see that today. As on my TV, we're seeing Toto Wolff wearing a tie. There's Sebastian Vettel in his car, trying to keep cool. Can he, this weekend, make amends for last year? I think if he did, then his confidence would boost massively, because the last year and his errors and his poor form has been caused directly by that mistake 1 year ago at Hockenheim. Yeah, we're seeing some more. Plenty of, by the way, Ferrari fans and Vettel fans. I'm not doubting that, but looks as though there are a bit more Verstappen fans out there to me. And yet plenty of Ferrari/Vettel fans ready for qualifying. By the way, I just want to say something, and this is actually quite funny. This watch-along today, the qualifying watch-along for this year's German Grand Prix, this is the 1 year anniversary of our first ever watch-along on this channel. Because last year, the first watch-along was for the 2018 German Grand Prix for qualifying. So it's the 1 year anniversary since then. And if there is anyone in the chat who was there that day in the chat and was on the stream, then let me know, because it'd be great to see who was there that day. I think at most we had about 100 viewers that day. As there you go, qualifying 1 is now underway at Hockenheim. And the first car on track is Robert Kubica. So Robert Kubica is the first car on circuit. Let me just quickly get a picture up of, and now here comes George Russell on track as well. But I'm going to try, if I can, and get a picture up of a Ferrari, because Ferrari, of course, we are expecting them to be very good in qualifying today. And by the way, yes, I will get the running order up in just a moment, but there's no real point doing it right now because we haven't actually had any times on the board. As Lance Stroll, here we go, let me put that up on the screen. By the way, this is not the live order, this is the order from practice 2 yesterday. I'll update it once everyone sets their first lap time of qualifying 1. But yeah, here is a man who at the moment is definitely in form, and a man who, you never know, could get pole position for Ferrari and could get his 3rd pole of the season and his 3rd, of course, of his career. Yeah, the first person who is going to do a lap is Robert Kubica, I believe. And by the way, thank you guys saying happy 1 year anniversary. Imrol such as you're the reason Vettel crashed last year. Yeah, there you go. But Robert Kubica, I think, has now started a lap, and so has George Russell, I think. And I think we are currently on the TV looking at Russell heading down to the turn 6 hairpin. Let's see what braking is like for the Williams. Let's see if he locks up the inside front. He doesn't. Quite a bit of understeer though, but that's to be expected because it is a Williams. Lance Stroll also is on the circuit and I think has started a lap in the Racing Point. Only 3 cars on circuit right now. As I say that, Lando Norris comes out on circuit and Carlos Sainz, so both McLarens coming out on circuit, and so is Daniel Kvyat and the Toro Rosso. Williams not looking too bad on the entry to the stadium at turn 12, as Robert Kubica sets the first lap time of the qualifying session of 1:16.1. Here comes Russell to smash that to bits, I think, and Russell does a 15.6, so about half a second quicker than Robert Kubica. But yeah, Lance Stroll is currently on a lap. He's coming down to the Mercedes-Benz grandstand at turn 8. Brakes very hard. And the Racing Point definitely looking a lot more aerodynamically better than it was And he's 1.8 seconds up on Russell after the first two sectors. Is Lance Stroll. Turns it into the Sachs curve. Good front end. Not the greatest rear end, but that's all right. Then swings it into the final two corners. And yeah, the rear end of this car not looking that great still, but it's looking better than it was. And Stroll does a 13.3 and goes P1. That's a pretty good time to start off with in Q1. So yeah, pretty good time there to start with from Lance Stroll. And on an outlap, we have the two Alphas, the two McLarens, and the two Toro Rossos. Lando Norris, though, has just started his first run in Q1, and he's coming down now to turn 3. And the car so far looking good. Carlos Sainz has also just started his first lap. Norris, not a good first sector from him as the car scraping away a lot down to the hairpin. Or should I say sparking, not scraping. But Carlos Sainz on a better lap so far. Norris now coming down to turn 8. Let me quickly get a picture on screen of a McLaren for you guys. But yeah, Norris now coming through turn 8, 9 and 10. Now coming to the middle sector point. How is he doing compared to Stroll? He's half a second off already. And Carlos Sainz is slightly slower than Lance Stroll. So Stroll's time, as I said, pretty good time to start off with. And here comes Lando Norris to the line for his first lap of the session. And he goes second. Carlos Sainz goes P1 by about 0.2 of a second. And there he is on your screen. Carlos Sainz. P1 for the moment. And now Daniel Kvyat goes up to P2. Who else have we got? And that's a Red Bull who's come out onto the track. He's going very slow. It's Max Verstappen. Kimi Raikkonen now goes P1. And who else have we got? Giovinazzi goes P4. Albon does a terrible lap and goes behind both Williamses. Kubica, by the way, has got back ahead of Russell. And now on an outlap, we have the two Ferraris, the two Red Bulls, Romain Grosjean and Sergio Perez. Still in the pits are the two Renaults, the two Mercedes and Kevin Magnussen as Charles Leclerc passes Vettel on their outlaps. Yeah, once everyone sets a lap time, guys, I will make sure to update the order to what it is. And does Vettel have an issue? Because he's going very slowly for an outlap. I mean, I understand, you don't want to destroy the tyres, but this is a bit too slow, surely. Romain Grosjean is now currently on a lap, by the way, and so is now Sergio Perez. And Vettel now pulls ahead of Charles Leclerc, so I don't know what Ferrari are doing here, as Max Verstappen now doesn't set a time, and yeah, Vettel has an issue. Some kind of issue with Sebastian Vettel's car. I don't know what yet, but he's come straight back into the pits. But yeah, Max Verstappen has started a lap, and now so has Charles Leclerc. And yeah, Vettel has an issue for sure. People in the chat confirming that. And here comes Max Verstappen down to turn 8. Charles Leclerc's done the fastest first sector so far on the soft tyres. Verstappen now coming up to the middle sector point. Let's see what Max Verstappen's time is so far. With 10 minutes to go in Q1. He's about 10.5 up only on Kimi Raikkonen. And now comes into the stadium, though, where the Red Bull is very, very good. And he now comes up to the final two corners. Does Max Verstappen. And Verstappen doesn't track extend at the final corner and goes P1 by half a second. Definitely, though, surely there is more in that Red Bull car because he did make a slight error on the exit of the Sachs curve. Here comes Charles Leclerc, though. He's going to smash Max Verstappen's time, I think. And here he comes. He doesn't smash it, but goes about 3.5 tenths of a second faster. So Charles Leclerc P1. And yet Vettel has an issue at the back of his car. Some kind of issue. I'm guessing power unit or maybe something to do with the floor, who knows, but something at the rear of the Ferrari. As Pierre Gasly is currently on a lap, and we've got the 2 Renaults, 2 Mercedes, and Kevin Magnussen now on an outlap. And yet Ferrari now having to take the engine cover off. This is a disaster for Ferrari, I have to say. Absolute disaster. They've already had an issue with Vettel's car that could see him possibly starting at the back if they don't fix it in time. But here comes Lewis Hamilton on his first run in Q1. And let's see what I was going to say Sebastian. Let's see what Lewis can do. Let me just quickly show a picture of Sebastian Vettel having to get out of the car. Let me just quickly show that. As Hamilton now down to the hairpin. Valtteri Bottas, by the way, has done a very, very slow first sector for some reason. Yeah, there's Vettel. And it looks as though Vettel has a very bad issue with his car. And is now right at the very back. So I'll put him at the back for now as Lewis Hamilton. For the middle sector does a 51.2. I don't know how good that is. It's not the fastest middle sector though, for sure. And now comes into the final 2 corners. And oh, Red Bull ahead. That would have distracted him. And now, oh, yellow flag in sector 2 for some reason. And Hamilton only goes P13. And yeah, definitely he was held up a lot on that lap. Was Lewis Hamilton. Daniel Ricciardo goes P4. Hülkenberg has gone 8th. And Kevin Magnussen has gone into P5. Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, though, are definitely going to do another lap to try and improve their time. So, with 6.5 minutes to go, I'll now start to do some of the order. Verstappen is P2, Leclerc P1. Kimi Räikkönen is P3 with Daniel Ricciardo P4. P5 is Romain Grosjean ahead of teammate Kevin Magnussen. Haas looking good as Valtteri Bottas now goes for another run because his first one was awful. Yeah, Grosjean in 5th, Magnussen in 6th, then Carlos Sainz is in P7. Lance Stroll is in P8, and then P9 is Daniel Kvyat, looking good for him. So far, Hülkenberg is in P10, so that's a top 10 for now. And then P11 as Valtteri comes down to turn 8 on his first proper run. Gasly P11 for some reason, that's very poor. Perez P12. And then you've got Giovinazzi in P13, Albon P14, Norris P15. But let's see where Valtteri Bottas goes with this lap, because I think he'll relegate a lot of people down with this lap that should be good enough for the top 2 or 3. Here he comes, Valtteri Bottas, and he goes P4. Does Valtteri Bottas P4 and was actually 8 tenths off Leclerc and was slower than Kimi Räikkönen. That is incredible how he was that far off. The Bottas P4, so that puts Ricciardo down. And now we've got 5 minutes to go. Let me just quickly do this order. Grosjean is 6th. Then you've got Kevin Magnussen as Lewis Hamilton is now on another lap because his first run was heavily compromised. Grosjean is 6th, Magnussen is 7th, and then it is Sainz in 8th. 9th is Lance Stroll. And then P10 is Kvyat. So Racing Point looking pretty good. They're P9 and P13 for the moment. Then it's Hockenheim in P11. And Vettel is getting out of his car. And I think that's it. Sebastian Vettel is out of qualifying. Oh dear. Vettel going to have to start from the back. What a disaster for him at his home Grand Prix. Things just don't get any easier, do they, for Sebastian Vettel? As Lewis Hamilton comes around the final corner and does not track extend. He was very, very close. And Lewis Hamilton goes P3. Right, so now I've got to redo the order again. So Hamilton is P3. Raikkonen is P4. And then it is Bottas in P5 with 3.5 minutes to go in qualifying 1. Then it is not Raikkonen, it's Ricciardo in 6th. 7th is Romain Grosjean. 8th is Kevin Magnussen. That's good news, by the way, for the midfield runners. Is Vettel, you know, having his issue. Sainz is in 9th and Lance Stroll is in P10, and then it's Kvyat P11 from Hülkenberg P12, and then very surprisingly Pierre Gasly is P13. That is so bad. Don't know what's wrong with him, but that's an awful time. Perez 14th. Antonio Giovinazzi is 15th, and then in the drop zone and desperately trying and wanting to get out is Alexander Albon, Lando Norris, Robert Kubica, who is so far ahead of Russell, and Vettel. But Vettel is officially, I think, out of qualifying. Yes, he is, because he doesn't have enough time to get out. So Sebastian Vettel, by the way, if you're just joining us, has had some kind of reliability issue and is out of qualifying and will start at the back for his home Grand Prix. What a disaster. As Carlos Sainz comes to the line on another lap and doesn't improve. What does Lando Norris do? He goes P15. Let me quickly update that, as most people now are on an out lap. So Norris just gets in for the moment, but I think Norris is honestly going to get knocked out, because I think Giovinazzi and Albon are definitely going to improve their lap times. And yeah, Vettel, Binotto, all of them look very, very unhappy. We're seeing a replay here of a Haas trying to get ahead of a Toro Rosso. I don't know if that's an unsafe release or not, but there you go. Yeah, that's the current live running order, guys, with a minute to go in Q1. Let me try and find one final picture. And it is going to be of Sebastian Vettel from the Ferrari, as Kimi Raikkonen is now on his final run in qualifying 1. He's currently in P4 ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Very impressive. His first sector, though, so far not impressive. He's already lapped slower than he did before. Here is Vettel. If you're a Vettel fan, then yeah, it just doesn't get any better for you. There you go. Yeah, qualifying 1 about to come to a close. Let's see who can get out of the drop zone and who will be knocked out. Kimi Raikkonen, currently in P4, is on a lap that I don't know if it's good enough to improve his time. We'll have to see. And no, this is not good enough to improve his lap so far. Antonio Giovinazzi, though, his teammate, is improving. He's a 10th up on the time he needs to be up on to get into the next part of qualifying. Kimi Raikkonen comes to the line. And Kimi Raikkonen is, remaining in P4, even though he does a faster final sector. Antonio Giovinazzi goes P8. Kevin Magnussen, currently P9, goes up to P6. Sergio Perez comes to the line and goes P10. Romain Grosjean comes to the line, stays P8. And Daniel Kvyat stays P13. Pierre Gasly, P15 for the moment, is now up to P4. That's him safe. Hülkenberg goes P11. Robert Kubica comes to the line and is 18th. Ricciardo stays in 8th. Russell is 18th, so he outqualifies his teammate. Lance Stroll is 14th. Here comes Alexander Albon. Can he get out the drop zone? No, he can't. So Albon is out, and I think Lando Norris is out as well. And yes, Norris is out. So out in Q1 is Lando Norris, Alexander Albon, and then Russell, Kubica, and of course Sebastian Vettel. And by the way, Lance Stroll, for the first time this season, indeed has got into the second part of qualifying. So well done to him. Gasly there got into P4 at the end, ahead of Kimi Räikkönen in P5. Valtteri Bottas was P6, ahead of Magnussen. And then Ricciardo, Grosjean, and then Giovinazzi. So that's your top 10 for the end of Q1. Don't worry, I'll update the text, by the way, guys, in a moment. And then it was Hülkenberg in P11 from Perez in P12. And then P13 was Sainz, and then P14 was Stroll from 15th. And Albon there got held up by a McLaren on his run. I don't know which McLaren it was. I'm going to guess it was Carlos Sainz. I don't know though. But Stroll 14th. And Danny Kvyat just got in P15. So knocked out in Q1, Lando Norris, Alexander Albon, George Russell, Robert Kubica, and due to a reliability issue, Ferrari driver, home driver, Sebastian Vettel. But there you go. That is it for Q1. And now we'll get prepared for qualifying 2. And this is where it really does get exciting, because the field looks pretty close. And I think we might see an upset in Q2 in terms of who gets knocked out. So let me quickly get everything ready. Of course, Q2 is a 15-minute session. And just looking at you guys in the chat. Ferrari car problems for Seb. Yep, absolutely. Let me just look at some other comments here. Sebastian has never won lower from 3rd. Well, he would never win anyway, even if he was that good to win from that part of the grid. Let me look at some others here. Tonka saying, damn, wanted better for Lando. You have to say, though, based on the weekend so far, Lando getting knocked out in Q1 is not a massive surprise based on the weekend so far. But based on the season so far, it is a surprise. Lando this weekend just hasn't hooked up to the track at all. So yeah. And let me also get another picture of Vettel when he got out of his car and when he knew that it was all over for today. So let me get that on screen. Here you go. I do feel for him, even though I think, his form from Silverstone was all his fault. There was no issue really with the Ferrari car. It was him not getting the best out of it in Silverstone. Even though he hasn't been as good as Charles Leclerc this weekend, you have to say that Sebastian Vettel would have definitely been in the top 2 or 3 for qualifying today, because he has been very competitive and so has the car, and that's why Sebastian will be so disappointed. And let me actually just replace the text saying Q1 is over so people know. But that, by the way, what's just happened, will not help Sebastian's confidence whatsoever. It will not help him whatsoever, because the only thing that would help his mentality or his confidence this weekend would be him winning the Grand Prix. And his chances of winning are now absolutely zero. He's not going to win the Grand Prix. So his lack of confidence, his weak mentality, because of really what happened last year at the same Grand Prix, is going to continue, I'm afraid. It's a shame for him, but, you know, these things happen, I'm afraid. Formula One cars, you know, you can't expect them to run smoothly the entire time that you drive them. They're going to have issues. And, yeah, that's just what happens, I'm afraid. Yeah, Q2 will be underway very soon. And again, as I said, I think we are in for a close session. A very close session. And let me now get the text ready again, because Q2, I believe, is about to start. And let's see. So Q2, of course, 15 minutes long. And let's see who in the midfield gets knocked out. So there you go. 15 minutes to go in qualifying 2. Let's see what happens. And let me now, for you Vettel fans, let me get a different picture on the screen. Not that very depressing one, you have to say. Yeah, let me just get a picture of Lewis Hamilton on the screen. We haven't shown a Mercedes car yet, so let me get that on screen for you guys. And at the moment, there are no cars on track, so nothing really to talk about at the moment. But yeah, here you go. Lewis Hamilton, who of course last year at Hockenheim had a reliability issue in Q2, meaning he had to start in P14, and of course everything happened and he won the race. So Vettel essentially is experiencing what Hamilton did last year, but in a more unfortunate part of the session, as the two Mercedes cars come out on medium compound tyres. That's very interesting. So they think they can get through on the mediums. What has Charles Leclerc gone for? Medium tyres as well. So Ferrari are not going to do the gamble that they did in Austria and Silverstone, which I think ultimately cost them good results in both races, to be honest. As Sebastian continues to walk through the paddock, still looking very, very dejected, I think they call it. And yeah, we've got now Carlos Sainz on circuit. Of course, the midfield runners are going to be on the soft tyres because they're not that quick to get through. Lance Stroll is also on circuit, and everyone else is in the pit lane. So we'll see what Leclerc and the two Mercedes cars can do on this medium tyre. Can they set a lap time that is clearly good enough straight away to get into qualifying 3? Because of course they don't want to start tomorrow's Grand Prix on the soft, because tyre wear is definitely worse here than it is at say Silverstone or any tracks like Austria or stuff like that. So it's vital for these teams to start on the medium. And here comes Lewis Hamilton to start his first Q2 run. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton has for us. He now comes through the first corner, looking pretty good. And now brakes for 3. Slight lock up and runs slightly wide. Definitely a bit of understeer there for Lewis Hamilton. But the lap so far is still pretty good. As he now comes up to the turn 6 hairpin. Does he lock up this time? No, he doesn't. Front end doesn't really, again, go in as much as you would hope. But there you go. As now he comes through turn 7. That's just a kink. And then turn number 8. The Mercedes-Benz grandstand on the right. Now through 9 and 10. A fast chicane there. He quickly pulls out of the slipstream of a Racing Point. Now swings it into the stadium. He's on a very quick lap, Lewis Hamilton. Front end nicely going into the sacks. And now comes into the final 2 corners. And Lewis Hamilton will go P1 for now, of course, because he's the first one to set a lap time. And Lewis Hamilton does a 1 minute 12.1. That is very, very quick. Valtteri Bottas goes P2 on a 1 minute 12.4. Which is, of course, not as good, but still pretty good. As Max Verstappen comes out on track on medium tyres. And Charles Leclerc does a 1:25.5 for some reason, so must have made a mistake on that lap for Charles Leclerc. Lance Stroll does a 13.4. Plenty of traffic out there as Leclerc goes for another run, I think. Carlos Sainz goes P3 on a 1 minute 12.6. As we've got Perez now on a lap. We've got Verstappen, Gasly, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Giovinazzi, Hülkenberg, and Kvyat all on an out lap, and Romain Grosjean for some reason is still in the pit lane. Charles Leclerc goes for that second run on the mediums, which will affect his race, you know, having a lap extra wear on them, but it shouldn't be a massive thing. As Leclerc now comes to the middle sector, and he is half a tenth up on Lewis Hamilton. And Leclerc's really slow lap time deleted anyway because of a track limits violation at turn 1. And Leclerc now comes into the final 2 corners. Where will Charles Leclerc go on the medium tyres? He goes into P2, 0.2 of a second down. So he's splitting the Mercedes cars for now. As we've got Perez in P5, Hülkenberg and Kvyat are now on a lap. So is now Kimi Raikkonen and Daniel Ricciardo and Antonio Giovinazzi all starting their laps. And then Max Verstappen now starts his lap. And then Gasly, Magnussen, and now Grosjean will come out on track. Magnussen now starts his first lap. So we'll be getting those times on the board very shortly. By the way, interesting. I'd be interested to know whether Pierre Gasly is on the soft or the medium, because and Max Verstappen's immediately backed off, so he must have gone wide or come across traffic. I don't know, but there you go. Hülkenberg, by the way, goes P6. And yeah, Verstappen has backed off, so I'm going to assume he either made a mistake or got held up by some traffic. With 8.5 minutes to go in qualifying 2, Danny Kvyat goes P7 on a 13.1. That's not a bad lap. Kimi Raikkonen goes P5 on a 1 minute 12.8. That's pretty good. Ricciardo goes P9. Antonio Giovinazzi goes P6. That's good. Ahead of Perez, Hülkenberg, Kvyat, Ricciardo, and Stroll. But we still have, I was about to say, we still have the 2 Haas's and Red Bulls to set a lap time as Max Verstappen comes back into the pit lane. Kevin Magnussen has just gone up to P5. Gasly goes P3 on a 1 minute 12.3. Again, though, I want to see what tyres Pierre Gasly is on. So the only people not setting a lap time so far is Max Verstappen, who has come back into the pit lane. Hopefully he doesn't have an issue. And also Romain Grosjean, but Romain is currently on a lap. And he does his lap and goes up to P6. So great there for him. So now, with 7 minutes to go, I will quickly do the order of Q2 so far. So Lewis Hamilton is P1 with 7 minutes to go in Q2. Charles Leclerc is P2. P3, Pierre Gasly. Again, though, I don't know what tyres Pierre is on. Valtteri Bottas is P4. Carlos Sainz is in P5. I tell you, the medium tyre runners, they're not too far off the the elimination zone, only about 0.6 of a second, so they've got to be careful. But yeah, Sainz is P5. P6 is Romain Grosjean from Magnussen is 7th. And then it's Raikkonen in 8th from Giovinazzi in 9th. So Antonio improving his pace. Nice to see. And then Perez, for the moment, is just about getting in the top 10. And it's Hülkenberg P11 in the drop zone with Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, and then Max Verstappen is P15 because he hasn't yet set a lap time. Hopefully Max does not have an issue. And talking of Max, I'm going to go get a picture of him so you guys can see a bit of a Red Bull car. But I'm not sure if he does have any, type of issue. Hopefully not, because we need Verstappen. We needed, Vettel up there as well to make it a great race tomorrow. But yeah, let me just get this picture up of a Red Bull sparking away. I believe turn 1. You guys will love this picture of the Red Bull. And yeah, and who is this? It's Max Verstappen. Is it coming out on track on soft compound tyres? That's interesting. But yeah, it's not going to rain, by the way, guys, because yeah, the sun is out and we haven't got that long left in qualifying, so I think it will stay dry. And that, of course, helps out Ferrari a lot, as we now have 5 minutes to go in Q2. But guys, I'm going to quickly have a drinks break for my throat and then we'll get into the rest of the session. And yeah, Max Verstappen is currently pouring very, very slowly towards the hairpin. I don't know if he's saving tyres. I'm going to assume he is, but this is very slow for Max Verstappen. But yeah, in the drop zone, Hülkenberg, Kvyat, Ricciardo, Stroll and Verstappen. Those are the drivers that need to get out. And the drivers at risk, I would say, of getting knocked out are probably Giovinazzi and Perez. I think from Raikkonen up, I think they're fine. But yeah, I think Giovinazzi and Perez are at risk of getting dropped into the drop zone for sure. As Max Verstappen now comes to turn number 8. And yep, still going really slowly. This must be a 1980s style saving your tyres for your qualifying run. This is what they used to do in the 80s. Is because their tyres would only last about, 2 minutes on a, hard pushing lap, they would cruise around as slowly as possible so they could save the tyre. And that is pretty much what Max Verstappen is doing, as he now comes up to the penultimate corner and now starts his lap. So let's see what Max Verstappen can do on the soft tyre that he's going to start on for tomorrow's German Grand Prix. As he now heads down into turn 1, throws the car in. Red Bull sparking away, great to see that. Brakes for turn 3. And yep, car looks good. Slight oversteer on exit. And he's a 10th down on Lewis Hamilton after the first sector. But the first sector is not that important. It's the middle and the final sector you've got to really get right. As he brakes for the hairpin and has a ton of understeer. Absolutely no front end there for Verstappen going into the hairpin. As he now brakes down for turn 8. And again, more understeer. The Red Bull really struggling at the front end compared to the Mercedes and even the Ferrari, to be honest. Verstappen is currently on a lap that would probably put him, say, P5, P6. As Verstappen now comes through the final 2 corners. And where will Max Verstappen go? It's going to put him in the top 10, but where? Max Verstappen, with 2 minutes to go in qualifying 2, goes P4 on a 1:12.4. And I think that's basic confirmation that Red Bull don't have the pace in qualifying today, because Hamilton, Leclerc for example, are on medium tyres and are still faster. So that puts Bottas down to P5, that run of Verstappen. Sainz is now P6 from Grosjean in P7. Kevin Magnussen is P8 for the Haas team. P9 is Kimi Räikkönen, and then P10 is Antonio Giovinazzi, meaning that because Verstappen just did that lap in the drop zone and needing to get out desperately are Sergio Perez, Nico Hülkenberg, Daniel Kvyat, Daniel Ricciardo, and Lance Stroll. Renault really not looking good this weekend. I don't know what it is, but they just don't have good pace in that car. As we've seen the replay there, Magnussen going too deep at turn 3 and locking up on the bump into turn 3. Yeah, Ricciardo 14th and Stroll is 15th. Talking to Stroll, he's currently on a lap. As he now comes into the Sachs curve, what can he do to get out and get into Q3 for the first time since the 2018 Italian Grand Prix? And he's completely blown it by power sliding his way through the penultimate corner, and Lance Stroll will not improve. No, he does not. He stays in P15. Romain Grosjean stays in P7. Carlos Sainz stays in P6. Daniel Kvyat comes to the line. Where does he go? He stays P13. Where's Nico Hülkenberg? Here he comes. Hülkenberg gets into P7. Daniel Ricciardo goes P10. That puts Kimi Räikkönen down, but Räikkönen goes P6. And Ricciardo is out in Q2. Giovinazzi goes P10 by 0.003 of a second and knocks Magnussen out. As Bottas goes P4 and Sergio Perez comes to the line and goes P10 by 0.010 of a second. So Perez in Q3, that's Racing Point's first appearance in Q3 since Baku. Great performance, but that puts Antonio Giovinazzi in the drop zone. So knocked out is Antonio Giovinazzi in P11. P12, Kevin Magnussen. That's a big surprise. An even bigger one is Daniel Ricciardo, 13th. That's very bad. Daniel Kvyat, 14th. And then Stroll, 15th. And then getting in the top 10, Hamilton, Leclerc, Gasly. And then Bottas, Verstappen, Kimi Räikkönen with a great lap. Also, Kimi Räikkönen did the fastest middle sector. So Kimi is really on fire today. Carlos Sainz gets in P7. Nico Hülkenberg gets in P8. And then P9 is Romain Grosjean. The Haas getting into Q3. That's good for them. And then Sergio Perez, as I just said, getting into Q3. That's their first. That's Racing Point's first Q3 appearance since Baku. Great for them. Oh, not Q3. Q2 is over. So now we only have the shootout, the 12-minute shootout left for pole position. But guys, let me know in the chat. What do you think is going to happen? Are you still going for the same people that you were going for pole earlier? Or have you now gone for someone else? Let me know in the live chat. And I'll make sure to read out your comments in just a moment. Let me just find another picture for you guys. And I've got one of Lewis Hamilton at the hairpin, I believe. As now Sky F1 are interviewing Sebastian Vettel, who looks so incredibly depressed, you have to say. But yep, here is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and I think Hamilton is absolutely the favourite for pole after qualifying 2. You have to say Mercedes are looking good. They really are looking good, and we'll see in a few moments whether they can get pole position at Hockenheim for the first time since 2016. Right, the chat is moving so quickly. Let me just see what's going on here. So people saying Leclerc, people saying Lewis, some people saying they hope Charles Leclerc gets pole. It would be great to see him on pole because I think that'd make for a great race tomorrow, having more than one team going for victory, and also with the Red Bulls on the soft tyre to start the race tomorrow compared to Hamilton, Bottas and Leclerc, who start on medium tyres, I believe. That really does make for an interesting race tomorrow when it comes to, the strategy in play. So yeah, that's going to be interesting tomorrow. But yeah, pole, the battle for pole will be very interesting as well. Cyber Trader, Norris, a disappointing finish, absolutely. But again, this weekend, it hasn't exactly been that type of weekend where he's been in the top 10 all the time. He's been in that area where he's ended up qualifying in P16. So, given the pace this weekend, again, it's not that big of a surprise. So, yeah. Shame for him, but not a surprise given the weekend so far. But I will say one thing that is definitely quite embarrassing for him is that Carlos Sainz is in Q3 and is probably going to be, with his lap time, a lot faster than what Lando Norris was able to do at the end of qualifying 1. So, yeah, a bit embarrassing today for Lando after what was a decent weekend at Silverstone and 2 very good ones in France and Austria. But at the end of the day, it's not a surprise that Sainz is ahead of Norris because he has been the entire weekend. And also, Carlos Sainz has been better than Lando Norris this season in most races, so it's not a surprise. Albon got blocked apparently. Yep, he did by a McLaren. I don't know what McLaren though. Tim Peters saying boo Hamilton and boo Bottas. I'm sure you're hoping for a Ferrari pole then. Let me look at the chat to see what you guys are saying. Leclerc should be Ferrari's first driver. Charles Leclerc has been very good as of late, but you do have to factor in Sebastian Vettel's bad luck from Austria and today. People say that he got unlucky, Vettel, in France, but I don't think he did because his reliability issue in France only happened for his first run in Q3, and then his second run the car was fine, but he said, quote, I couldn't feel the car. So if you look at since Canada, I think Leclerc has probably been better than Vettel for sure, but he hasn't been massively better than than it shows, because again, Vettel has had a couple reliability issues which have gotten his way and affected his end result. For example, if Sebastian Vettel did not start P10 in Austria, I think Vettel would have finished for sure on the podium. So, yeah, please remember that. But yeah, Charles Leclerc at the moment, yeah, he's doing great. But I think if you look at the overall season so far, it's been about equal between Vettel and Leclerc. Because Vettel, I think, was better in probably, how many races? I don't know, 6 of the first... not 6 of the first 7, about 5 of the first 7 races. I think Vettel was better. So yeah, it's been about equal, I think, so far this season. But now, Q3 is about to get underway. Of course, 12-minute session is now, oh dear, Ferrari mechanics now looking at the back of Charles Leclerc's car. Don't tell me there's another issue, because that is not what we want to see. We want to see a battle for pole. And yet, Q3 is underway, and I've missed the syncing up point for the timer, so I will sync up in about 50 seconds time. But here come the two Mercedes cars going for pole at their home Grand Prix, of course. Valtteri Bottas ahead of Lewis Hamilton on circuit as they come out onto the track, and it's an open track because they are the only cars on track, as Leclerc, Gasly, Verstappen, Raikkonen, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Grosjean, Perez are all still in the pit lane, and it looks as though Charles Leclerc has some kind of issue. That would be awful for him. Carlos Sainz now comes out onto track as well. And again, I'll say this again, Carlos Sainz, when are people going to give this guy praise? He's been so good this season, but no one gives him enough praise. Here comes a Red Bull. It is Max Verstappen. And I've again missed the syncing up point. So I'll sync up in just a moment because I'm busy trying to find possibly a different picture for you guys. So I'll sync up in just a moment. But we have about 10.5 minutes to go in qualifying 3 and in qualifying. As Max Verstappen will do the same again. Doing a very, very slow outlap to save the tyres so he can absolutely go for it when he starts the lap. As now Pierre Gasly is out on track on an outlap, and so is Romain Grosjean. Charles Leclerc, though, still in the car with 10 minutes to go. And the Ferrari mechanics look like they're cracking the pressure. One of the mechanics wiping the sweat off their face because clearly the pressure is on. And there you go. 10 minutes to go in qualifying 3. So let's see what happens and who gets pole position. Here comes Valtteri Bottas to start his first run for pole position. Turn 1 looking very good now. Down into turn 3. Brakes after the bump. And the front end looking good on that Mercedes-Benz. And at the end of the first sector, he does a 15.5. And Lewis Hamilton goes faster for the first sector, though. So Hamilton at the moment is up on Bottas. As Valtteri comes into the hairpin. Car looking good. And yet Hamilton was a 1/10 of a second faster in the first sector. As Bottas comes down to his own team's grandstand at turn 8. And now into the fast 9 and 10 chicane. And up to the middle sector point where he does a 50.2 for the middle sector. That's very quick. As he passes Max Verstappen there on a slow lap. Max is going to have to speed up soon because he might hold up Lewis Hamilton. As Valtteri comes to the final 2 corners. And comes through the final corner. What lap time does Valtteri Bottas do? It's going to be a 1 minute 11 something. It's not. It's a 1 minute 12.2. That's not that good of a lap. Lewis Hamilton goes pole position 4.5 tenths quicker on a 1 minute 11.7. And oh no! Charles Leclerc's out of qualifying in P10. Charles Leclerc has an issue and he's out. So Mercedes are on pole basically. What a disaster for Ferrari. When you just think their season couldn't get any worse, then they, make it worse themselves. What a disaster. Carlos Sainz is P3. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. If you're a Ferrari fan. And someone in the chat there saying, Ferrari's a letdown. Absolutely. How can you have 2 reliability issues in a 1 hour qualifying session? Come on. As Max Verstappen goes P2. I just missed that. Max Verstappen is on the front row. For now, of course. We've got 7.5 minutes left. Bottas is 3rd. Grosjean is 4th. Carlos Sainz is 5th. Pierre Gasly is in P6 but hasn't set a time yet. He's currently on a lap, but we're not seeing that lap, I believe. Oh no, he goes P4. Does Gasly about 4/10 of a second slower than Verstappen. So Red Bull for the moment, P2 and P4. And who else have we got? Anyone else on a lap? No, we do not. But yeah, Charles Leclerc is out of qualifying and will start P10. So Ferrari, who look like they could get a P2 and P3 or P1 and P3, they're going to start P10 and P20. How bad is that? So Hamilton for the moment on pole, from Verstappen in second, Bottas in third, and then Pierre Gasly is P4. By the way, this is great news for Red Bull Racing, because this basically guarantees that they'll finish ahead of Ferrari tomorrow. Unless, you know, there's no disastrous start or anything. Grosjean is P5. And then you've got Carlos Sainz in P6. And even though Charles Leclerc for the moment, it says he's in P7, he is out of qualifying. So Leclerc is P10, meaning that the drivers in P7, 8 and 9 are Raikkonen, Hülkenberg and Perez. Raikkonen, Hülkenberg and Perez, though, have not set a lap time because they want to go out there at a free time when there is a clear track. So we've now got Sergio Perez on a lap, or not on a lap, he's on an out lap. So Sergio Perez coming out of the pits on an out lap. And he is, by the way, Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez is the only driver on the track. So, yeah, we'll be seeing what he can do in a few moments' time. And yeah, for Red Bull again, looking great. P2 and P4. And by the way, I've seen plenty of people saying, you know, oh, Red Bull, they can't beat Ferrari in the Constructors. May I remind you that in the last two races, Red Bull have outscored Ferrari, and actually, Red Bull have outscored Ferrari in the Constructors in, I think, 4 of the last 6 races. So, Red Bull, I'm telling you, they are absolutely contending for P2 in the Constructors, and this just helps that even more. So, do not count out Red Bull for P2 in the Constructors, because they are gaining slowly but surely on Ferrari. Here is, by the way, your provisional pole position man. Again, Lewis Hamilton. But again, that's only provisional, as we have 4 minutes to go in Q3 and in qualifying. As Sergio Perez starts his, what will be probably final run in qualifying. What can Perez do? Let's see. He comes up to the first sector and is 0.4 of a second down on Lewis Hamilton. Of course, though, he is going to be miles off Lewis Hamilton's lap time, so that's not a surprise. He brakes for the hairpin, does Perez. Gets the front end in, and the Racing Point definitely looks like a better car than it did. As now Sergio Perez comes down to turn 8. Again, car looking good. Not really getting away from him. As he now comes up to the middle sector point. Let's see what his time is so far. Only half a second off Hamilton. You know what? This might put him into P5. This is a very good time from Sergio Perez. As he comes into now the final 2 corners. 16 and then 17. Hopefully he doesn't track extend. He doesn't. And now Perez comes to the line. And he goes P6, only half a tenth off Grosjean in P5. So great run there by Perez. Hopefully he can go again, but I don't think he will. So Grosjean is P6, P5, then Perez is P6 from Carlos Sainz in P7. And now we've got Kimi Raikkonen and Nico Hülkenberg on an outlap. And here come Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas for their final attempt at pole position. So let's see what they can do to get pole. Also, Max Verstappen is on circuit, and Gasly and Grosjean and Sainz, Raikkonen and Hülkenberg. So F1 excluding Charles Leclerc, of course, who was out of this Q3 because of a reliability issue of 2 minutes to go. Everyone else is on circuit. Perez is not on an outlap. but everyone else is. So let's see who takes the pole position as Hamilton and Bottas slowly cruise their way through the hairpin. Of course, again, like Max Verstappen was doing, they don't want to kill the tyres on the outlap. They want to save them so they can let it all go during the hot lap and get that pole position. As Hamilton now comes into turn 8 and now comes through the 9 and 10 chicane. By the way, I'm loving the retro Mercedes outfit for James Vowles. I think that's the first time someone has wore a suit on the pit wall in Formula 1 history. As now Hamilton comes into the Sachs curve. And by the way, I've just noticed that I might actually be right with my prediction because I said Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. But of course, we'll see with 45 seconds to go in qualifying whether that will be correct. As Lewis Hamilton starts his final attempt to keep pole position at Mercedes' home race at Hockenheim. He throws it into turn 1. He's absolutely great as Lewis Hamilton when it comes to qualifying. Sparking away down to 3. Slight bit of understeer, but that's fine. And Lewis Hamilton is not up on his time so far. He's a 10th of a second down is Lewis Hamilton. Bottas has improved his first sector by a couple hundredths. Max Verstappen has improved his as well. So Verstappen looking good. As Lewis Hamilton now comes down to the turn 8 corner. As Kimi Raikkonen goes P5. Great for him. As the checkered flag is now waving. Here comes Lewis Hamilton through the turn 9 and 10 chicane. And Hamilton is still going slower than he was on his first run. As Max Verstappen there, oh, I think he's blown it. I think Max Verstappen's blown it with a slight error. As Valtteri has had a slower middle sector, and so has, of course, Max Verstappen. But here comes Lewis Hamilton to the line. And Lewis Hamilton does not improve his time by only a quarter of a tenth. Here comes Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri stays in P3. Here comes Max Verstappen. And Verstappen is P2. Here comes Pierre Gasly, who I think went slightly off there, but who knows. Gasly, P4. Great time there by Gasly. Only a tenth off his teammate. Only half a tenth off his teammate. So Lewis Hamilton gets pole position from Max Verstappen in second. And then Valtteri Bottas is third with Pierre Gasly fourth. Kimi Raikkonen is fifth. Grosjean is sixth. Sainz is seventh. Perez eighth. Hülkenberg ninth. And Charles Leclerc, because of a reliability issue, is P10 with his teammate also having a reliability issue in P20. Let me quickly do the order. So yeah, Hamilton on pole, Verstappen second, Bottas third, Gasly fourth. By the way, well done Pierre Gasly for being that close to his teammate and being, you know, there to be competitive with Valtteri Bottas and also, again, his teammate. Bravo to him. Raikkonen, great by him. Kimi Raikkonen was... and Pierre Gasly, by the way, has had his lap time deleted because he went off at the final corner. I thought he would have it deleted, and he has. So because of that, Kimi Raikkonen was P5 and only 16 thousandths of a second off Gasly. So Kimi Raikkonen could have been on the second row of the grid. The Grosjean is 6th. Sainz is in P7. Perez is 8th, Hülkenberg 9th, and Leclerc is 10th. Then it's Giovinazzi P11, Magnussen P12, then Ricciardo P13, Kvyat P14, Stroll P15, Norris P16, Albon P17, Russell P18, Kubica P19, and Sebastian Vettel P20. There is qualifying over and done with today at Hockenheim. And guys, let me know in the chat exactly what you thought of qualifying, and I'll make sure to read out what you guys have to say for the next 20 to 25 minutes or so, as Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas now get out of their cars, of course, as they are now going to do the post qualifying interviews. And let me just try and find another picture of your pole position, man. But again, I will say not Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen, another great day for him. P2. Who would have thought he'd be on the front row? I know Leclerc had his issue, but, you know, still, to get ahead of Bottas, that's a great, great job. And that just shows you why Max Verstappen has been so great this season. And is, right now, you have to say, a great driver. And now, let me just get this on screen of Lewis Hamilton. And this will probably be one of the final pictures. The final one will probably be the official classification of the session. So let me just get this on screen. And then I'll come to you guys in the live chat. So, there you go. Your pole position man, let me adjust it. There you go. Your pole position man, Lewis Hamilton from Max Verstappen second. And by the way, the race tomorrow is going to be very interesting because both Mercedes cars, I believe, are on the medium tyres to start the race. And both Red Bulls are on the soft tyre. So, in theory, Red Bull should, in the first 10 laps or so, be on attack mode and be probably in the lead if they can use that softer tyre to their advantage. But there you go. And let's see what you guys have to say. And I've just got a super chat from Count Blard, $10. Thank you very much, mate, for that. Very, very much appreciated. Says, Team LH will take that luck, lol. Thanks for the stream as always. Thank you, mate, for watching and donating. And yeah, I think in terms of competition for pole, he was lucky because I think Leclerc and Vettel definitely would have been up there with him. But Hamilton was faster than Charles Leclerc in Q2, so you can't say Hamilton would not have been on pole position. So I think we can't say Hamilton was lucky today. Maybe he was, who knows? But I think Lewis would have been on the front row anyway. Even if Leclerc, produced a great run at the end, if he actually had a chance to go out and do a run. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And if anyone else wants to send in a super chat, then make sure to do so. And as well, super chats do have priority in terms of me reading them out. Right, let me look at some other comments. Say Rugara says Bonotto out. Let me just look at some other comments here. Geordie, Mercedes was sandbagging all along, so did Red Bull. Well, I told you Mercedes was sandbagging, and yeah, they went and got pole position, just as I thought. And by the way, I didn't get the order right, but the top 3 drivers were the top 3 I said they would be, but just, again, in the wrong order. So, yeah, I guess I should just, guess next time. As the Max Verstappen fans are very, very happy at the circuit that he's going to be on the front row of the grid. So we're going to have another showdown involving Max Verstappen. But this time against Lewis Hamilton. Star of the show from Louis Trichard he says is Kimi. Star of the show, Kimi Räikkönen? You know what? Yeah, I'm going to say yeah. I think Kimi was the best driver today in qualifying. Because to be 0.7 of a second off pole in an Alpha, which is definitely over a second slower, that's great. That's a great, great job. Hopefully Kimi can, finish in P6 or P7 tomorrow. That'd be great for him if Kimi Räikkönen could finish in the top 6. Kimi killed it, period. I bet it does not rain tomorrow when we need it. Well, to be honest, I don't think it'll help if it, rains. Because it'll increase the risk of an accident of, Leclerc and Vettel coming through the field. But also, the midfield drivers will be quicker than normal because of the rain. And because, their midfield cars won't really be midfield cars anymore. It'll come more so down to the driver than the cars. So I think for Ferrari, they need to hope that it's dry, to be honest, because I think that's a better opportunity of a top 3 or 4 finish. E7 suspect says Max to, let's just hide this, Max to overtake into the hairpin on lap 1. Max tomorrow absolutely has to attack because he is on the softer tyre. If he gets ahead of Lewis on lap 1, then I think Max Verstappen is in a very, very good position to win the Grand Prix tomorrow. But if Lewis Hamilton gets ahead and stays ahead, then I think Lewis Hamilton is more so the favourite to win. But it is going to be a great race tomorrow. It really is. Especially with Max Verstappen on the front row. And hopefully this time, with, you know, Max on the front row of the grid, hopefully he doesn't have a terrible start like he did in Austria. Because we need Max up there for the entire Grand Prix to make it, you know, a great race. Say Rugara says Max Verstappen will win. Richard Reed says Max Verstappen for Ferrari. By the way, hello to Richard, who is new to our Discord and is a great guy. So yeah, hello to you. Chazza, what are your thoughts on F1 going back to refueling? As I said yesterday and in the podcast, I disagree with it because the races will not become real, you know, races between drivers in terms of overtaking. It'll be qualifying races where you're just trying to get ahead at the pit stops instead of trying to, you know, overtake on circuit like you should be. And I don't think refueling is the answer to F1's issues. I think what you need is to keep it how it is in terms of, you know, the fuel levels and make the tyres as hard as possible. And I think it will work out. By the way, to do with, you know, great performances today, let's list some of them. So Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Kimi Raikkonen, also Romain Grosjean, great to see him up there. Sergio Perez, great performance, P8 in the Racing Point. In Silverstone, he qualified 15th. So you can, you know, obviously see the progress. I say Giovinazzi did an alright job because he was a bit slower during the weekend. Lance Stroll, I think, did alright to get into Q2, but P15 is still not that great considering your teammates P8. And then, yeah, the rest of the grid is how it is. Twin Prime says, finally we see a fight between Lewis and Max. Well, we did get it at Monaco, but of course, you know, we couldn't get wheel-to-wheel racing because it's Monaco. But I think, you know, the battle at Monaco was still a great one. But yeah, it should be Lewis versus Max with Valtteri kind of in there somewhere. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. But let me now, if I can... Leclerc, by the way, on his issue that stopped him driving in Q3, has said, I have no idea if it was the same issue as Sebastian. On my side, it was a fuel system problem. How bad is that for Ferrari? You know, it just gets worse for them. And this is what I said. This is what I said as we got into the build-up of today's qualifying session. Yes, Ferrari have the pace. But Ferrari, as they always do, will find a new way of messing up and losing. And they've gone and done that today by having 2 reliability issues in, 45 minutes of track running. Which is terrible, by the way. That's terrible reliability. To have 2 reliability issues in the 45 minutes of running you're allowed in qualifying. It's pathetic. This is Ferrari. This isn't... You know, no disrespect, this is not Racing Point, this is not Haas, this is Ferrari. Reliability should be like Mercedes, near perfect, not, you know, regularly affecting them. So, yeah, again, it's pathetic for a team like Ferrari to have 2 issues in such a short amount of time. It really, really is. But let's look at what you guys have to say. Jordi says, Ferrari reached a new bottom in 2019. Yeah. They absolutely have. And even though at the Italian Grand Prix, I think Ferrari pace-wise will be very competitive, I don't trust Ferrari to win. I don't trust them to win because how many times this season have they had a car good enough to win and they've ended up somehow not winning? So even though they'll be quick at Monza, does anyone really trust them to win? I don't. I wouldn't trust them with anything, doing anything good, because they just cannot do anything good. Every time we come into a qualifying session, Ferrari always end up with a worse result than they are expected to do, even if they're expected to not be that good. Look at France. In France, we thought they'd be terrible, and they ended up being even worse. Silverstone. We didn't think they'd be on pole, but we thought they'd be, all right, P3, P4. They ended up P3 and P6. Just the way Ferrari are. They always end up somehow messing things up and getting a worse result than is actually possible. And Red Bull, for example, are the opposite. And as I've said earlier on, Red Bull, I think, will beat Ferrari in the Constructors because, one, they don't blow points. They make sure to get as many points as they can during a Grand Prix weekend. And Red Bull, excluding the power unit, have a better car. And they have a driver who is better than both of the drivers they already have there. Even though, of course, Charles Leclerc is very good and also so is Sebastian Vettel. So, yeah, 2019 has just really, been a disaster for Ferrari. It really, really has. And if they don't win the Italian Grand Prix, which is their last opportunity to win in 2019, then, the season is a write-off. And they should just give up. Because, if they don't win there, then where are they going to win? And knowing them, because of the way they are, they'll definitely let their fans down at their home circuit. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Spider Monkey says, Chaz, you're almost about to get 7,000 subs. Okay, yeah, we are actually not that far away. If you could actually, because I can't really see right now, if anyone would like to tell me what sub number I am on, then make sure to do so. But yeah, we are, again, growing nicely this month. Grace says, Max, please don't crash into Lewis tomorrow. Super Vlogger Michael says, why are Ferraris so crap at reliability? This is the thing. This is so funny. I did a video on Tuesday. Some of you would have seen it, talking about the power units from all the manufacturers, how their season's gone so far and where they need to improve. The one thing I said when I left off with Ferrari was, power's great, but the one thing they need to focus on, actually, the two things, is fuel consumption and reliability. 5 days later, they have a double reliability issue in qualifying. How funny is that? How funny is that? That happens right after I make a video on it. It's like, wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Right, let me look at some other comments here. We've got probably another 7 or 8 minutes left of the stream. By the way, guys, need to let you know this. My recorded review of qualifying will be out at about 4:15 PM UK time. Probably at the latest, 4:30 PM UK time. But yeah, most likely it'll be 4:15 PM UK time. And yeah, it'll be a, 10 to 12 minute review of qualifying, what's happened today. So make sure to come along to that. And also, make sure to subscribe to this channel because tomorrow's race watch along with me and Nib, who will be along, it's the only place you can catch a watch along for the 2019 German Grand Prix on this website. So this is the channel and the place to be for tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it there, or you can go to my homepage and do it there, subscribe, and also hit the notifications bell. And also hit the like button if you want to see this content continue on the channel going forward. Right, so let me just quickly see if I can find a results graphic online. No, I can't. So I'm going to have to leave up the running order as it is because I can't find the graphic saying where everyone is. So can't do that at the moment. But yeah, for the next 5 minutes, I'll read out your comments and then we'll come to the end of the stream. Right. Let me look at your comments. Jordi says, please rain in Hockenheim tomorrow. Even though we're probably going to get a dry race, and I think it'll still be great if it's dry. I love every race to be wet. So if it's a wet race, all good for me. But I think if it's dry, it'll still be good because we're going to have a 3-car fight for the win, and most likely between Verstappen and Hamilton. So yeah, if it's not wet, don't think about not watching it because it still will be a great race. And also, we'll have to see how Leclerc and Vettel do coming through the field. It won't be easy because at Hockenheim you can only pass in really one place or 2 places: the turn 6 hairpin and the turn 8 left-hander in front of the Mercedes-Benz grandstand. That's the only real places you can overtake. So Ferrari, they're not in for an easy, run back, through the field. It's going to be tough. It really is going to be tough. Right, let me look at some other comments. Richard Reed says, Chazza, a lot of these teams are far from the level of Mercedes. Absolutely. I don't think Red Bull are that far away, but Ferrari, even though, of course, their car pace-wise is still very good, if you take the money away from Ferrari that they have over teams like Racing Point, McLaren, Renault, Alpha even, who they actually own, then they would be a midfield team. They absolutely would. If you gave Ferrari the same money as Alpha or Racing Point, because of how bad their engineers have been, their team personnel has been, and at times their drivers have not done that well, they would be a midfield team if they had the budget of an Alpha and a Racing Point. And that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. They're not getting the best out of themselves. They're not getting the best out of the team as a whole. The car, even though it's not that good, they're not getting the best out of it still. So yeah, very, very poor in terms of a set of engineers, and as a team, they're just not that good of a team. The only reason Ferrari this season are a top team in terms of their car is because they have enough money to develop a good car from the outset and then keep that car in the top 3 for this season. That's the only reason they're still in the top 3. It really is. It really, really is. JB says, considering, Chaz, we thought your predictions were crazy. You got most of it right. Just needed to switch Verstappen and Bottas around. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be honest, when I saw that it was going to be dry today, I thought, oh dear, what have I done with my predictions? But then, after the first runs in qualifying 3, I was basically correct. So, yeah, somehow I've ended up being mostly correct on it. But I didn't really want to be correct, though. I wanted a different car than a Mercedes on pole, I can tell you that. Because I want to see more than one team fight for the win. I don't care if Mercedes win, but I just want to see an exciting race no matter who wins. If they win and it's an exciting race like Silverstone, then so what? Don't care. But if it's, a boring race because we don't get more than one team fighting for the win or more than one driver fighting for the win, then, it does affect things. Kimmy's move to Alpha is looking good by the minute, says Crystal Racing. It is for sure. I will say though, with Alpha, this season hasn't quite been as good as I was hoping for coming into the season. But as a team, because they are owned by Fiat or the Fiat Chrysler group that also own, Ferrari, and Ferrari, of course, have preferential treatment over Alpha in terms of who gets more funding. But because Alpha are basically you know, Ferrari's bitch, let's be honest, I don't really see where Alpha go in the next few years of Formula One, because they're never going to be allowed to be, you know, a top team. Not that they're really ever going to be, but you know what I mean. I don't see them developing into a great team. I think Racing Point, because of how great their team is at getting the best out of themselves and the car, considering the little amount of money they do have, I think they can, if they improve as a whole, build, you know, something quite special. But a team like Alpha, I just, you know, I just feel as though they can only go so far. So I think, you know, Kimi Räikkönen's move was a good one, for sure. But I don't think Kimi and that team can really go any further than where they, you know, have been at times in 2019. Because of who they're owned by. JB, let me show that message. And it is true, by the way. Right, let me find one final comment and then we'll come to the end of the stream. And the final comment goes to Magath88, who says, "We know Verstappen will be aggressive tomorrow, which makes me hopeful." So it does for me as well. It really does for me as well, because I know Max Verstappen will throw it, you know, down the inside at any corner he can on that first lap. So we are going to get a very, very entertaining first lap at Hockenheim, especially down at the hairpin. So yeah, definitely look out for that in tomorrow's Grand Prix. But guys, that has been it for this stream today, the qualifying watch along for the 2019 German Grand Prix. Thank you guys for coming along and being part of the stream. Great to have you guys along as always, and hopefully you'll all join me tomorrow for the race watch along for the 2019 German Grand Prix. By the way, the race watch along gets underway at 10 past 1 p.m. UK time, just as it did at Silverstone, Austria, France, so on and so forth. So make sure to join me then. And again, it's the only place on this website you can catch a watch along for the race tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also smash the like button for more content like this. And as well, I will be uploading my review of qualifying in about an hour's time. So make sure to come along to that and give your thoughts as to, you know, what's happened in qualifying. Make sure to do that, and also comment down below on this video what you thought of the video, and also comment down below what did you think of qualifying today. What do you think of, you know, the battle for pole, Ferrari's reliability issues? Let me know in the comments. And as well, make sure to join my Discord server for the best, you know, it's the best place for notifications, my videos and streams. And also it is the hardcore Chazza HDF1 community, and that server that is quite active during the race weekend. So make sure to go and join that link below in the description. And also follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110 and check out my website chazzahd.com for more content like this. But guys, until the race watch along tomorrow for the 2019 German Grand Prix at Hockenheim at 10 past 1 p.m. UK time, live right here on this website, it has been me, Azar HD. Goodbye.